And the situation was that the bases were loaded, which means, if you didn't know, there's a person on first, second, and third base. If you're like, I'm like, baseball, is that the one where they swing the bat? The bases are loaded, a woman gets up to bat, she hits, and the ball goes out of the park. So she's going to force everybody home. No, the bases weren't loaded. There was a person on first base and a person on third base. So she was going to force everybody home, and so she runs to first. You know, you have to, even though you got the home, you have to run around the bases, right? So she runs to first base, she turns first base, and starts to go to second base, and suddenly she collapses on the ground. As she turned the base, she twisted her knee, and I think tore her ALS. So she can't continue to run the bases. And so everybody ends up on the field, and they're like, we'll put in a fellow teammate to run around the bases. And the umpires are like, no, it clearly says in the book, in the rule book, the person who hits the homer has to run the bases, right? So in other words, we'll give her a single, but that's it, because she touched the first base back, which means, in other words, if she had run the bases, it would have been 3-0. But now they'll give her a single, which just means now the bases are going to be loaded, right? Well, suddenly at that moment, two women from the opposing team ran out onto the field, and they said to the umpire, is there anything in the rule book that says that people from the other team can't help her around the bases? I'm sorry, is this wrong? The umpire also said that she wasn't allowed to have any assistance from her own teammates. But then, so they came out in the field and they said, is there anything in the rule book that says that the opposing team can't help her around the bases? And they're like, no. And so these two girls from the other team carried her around the bases, and as I read the story, they were all three crying. And they carried her between their arms, and she just kind of tips the bases. And forcing the other two women home. So now the score was 3-0, and that the other team never scored, and they lost 3-0. And at the end, they did this interview, and they said, why did you do that? Like, you lost the game because you did that. And the women said, they said, you know, years from now, we could remember that, I could remember that I won the game, or I could remember that we won the game. And I just think that's where we are. That's where we are in this world, that we can remember that we won the game, or that if we're lucky, even if we're lucky, we can individually win the game, or we can work together. And so that when I was doing No Impact Man, everybody said to me, not everybody, but many people said to me, are you too stupid to realize that one person can't make a difference? And I thought, you know, I was like, oh gosh. And finally I was like, yes, I'm too stupid to realize that one person can't make a difference. And that's my wish for you. I think we can all make a difference. And we come up with all these thoughts about why we can't. But my wish for you is that you too will be too stupid to realize that you can't make a difference. And thank you. So we have time now for some questions. There's a microphone. Is there going to be a microphone on both sides, or just the one microphone? Two. There's going to be a microphone. There's a microphone on each side. Those of you who are leaving, if you could just do so fairly quietly and quickly. Those of you who are in the other auditorium, there are some seats freeing up here. So if you want to come and ask a question, and we'll just take a couple of seconds.
Or you want to go?
Go ahead, you're fine.
I'm a total idiot, and I didn't read your book, but I love your mission. I'm a total wildlife and environmental advocate, and because I didn't read your book, I hope I don't sound stupid, but what do you feel about the next generation? Like, I see my generation and the next one that's coming out, they're all into their electronics, and they're not really going outside and appreciating the environment and the wildlife more, and not doing like these cleanups and all of that. So how do you feel about that? And the second part to that question is, what would you suggest as parents and big brothers and big sisters and cousins, how can we counsel the children to care more about our environment?
So, the first thing I think that's really important, we can look around and we can see that lots of other, you guys are all really playing on your video games way too much. Right? And I think that the first thing to really realize is to be really careful of is that we're blaming somebody else. So and also the thing to be really careful of is this idea that I know better. No, it's not to say that I never know something that somebody else doesn't know. It is to say that I think that if I really hope to change people's minds, I have to come from a place of love and tolerance.
Right.
And it's very easy to fall into you people this, you people that, especially when it comes to consumption. You people are driving your BMWs and going around with your yachts and going places in private jets, and I just wish I could too. I mean, and you shouldn't be doing that. So it's very easy to project actually parts of ourselves on other people and be angry at them when really we're not just accepting parts of ourselves. So, in some ways, I think the first thing to do is actually, in some ways, go out and spend a few days playing video games. Like, so first of all, you're like, okay, I get it, I'm fine, I took care of that part of myself. And then the next question is, what can you offer that's better than a video game? So people often ask me, what do I do with Isabella? Like, Isabella wants to watch TV or something like that. Or, so Isabella, lots of times Isabella goes, Dad, I want to watch TV. And I said, okay, do you want to watch TV? Would you rather watch TV? Or would you rather I play with you? Play with me, Dad. Mm-hmm. Right? So because I offer her something better. Mm-hmm. So how can we, with love, I think,